How's it going? Welcome back from Labor Day weekend. Let's turn the hat around on this market report, shall we? Oh God, no more hat. We can't do that. Welcome back from Labor Day weekend. For all the family grill workers out there like myself, you are seen, you are heard, you are appreciated. It's time to do a market report on what happened last month to see what's going to happen next month. Can't predict the future, as we always say. However, we can dig into these numbers and see what we think might be happening, what the trends look like based on what's happened before. Shall we? What's up? My name is Joshua Smith. I'm with the Home Agent Group. I want to talk to you about what you're up to and how we can expand together.
I'm gonna be honest with you, and you can cut this if you need to.
What's the highlight of our entire trip?
Cheers. It's the beginning of September. We're leaning into fall. We want to know what it's looking like so far this year. Numbers are, actually not looking too terrible, but they're just very indicative of what's been happening, obviously, on the market. We're going to be looking at Davidson County, Williamson County, Montgomery County, Wilson, and Rutherford. These are all the areas that I work in Greater Nashville in general. So I guess we could start on the pricing trends. Let's go back 5 years. This is something that I think is always important to look at. It's good to know kind of where your value is trending as a homeowner, as a seller. Trying to time the market is never a good idea if you're looking to sell your home, but looking at where prices are during different times in the year, always important. So I would say watch monthly reports like this one. Average sale closed. Yeah, so basically this is the average sale price in the last 5 years. These numbers basically in all areas have increased. If I go down here, Rutherford County, this is Murfreesboro, MTSU, staying pretty flat line across the board for average sale price. So that's the average cost of a home since 2022. Definitely went up a little bit here and there. And it looks like it came down just a little bit, but I mean, basically we're flatlined. All right, so for market inventory, this is what I wanted to look at kind of the most when I dug into these numbers before I jumped on this video this morning. Let's see, Montgomery County has seen a lot more homes recently than previously. So we've got a really solid inventory in Montgomery. Again, people have to come and go from base. There's a lot of PCS happening, which is just military people moving around. If you're not military, you don't know the term. Wilson County has sort of flatlined in terms of inventory. Davidson County, I felt like it was doing the same, but I see a pretty big peak here. There's a lot more inventory in Davidson County than we've seen in the last 5 years. Williamson County is no more inventory than we've seen necessarily in the past few years. It's definitely flatlined over from 2022 until now. Rutherford County, same kind of thing. Yeah, and so I feel like the number to really be looking at is under contract inventory, and this is where my heart sank a little bit, is to see just how much fewer homes are under contract in terms of the inventory that we have on market right now. Effectively, this number going down means that there's far fewer homes under contract that are on the market than there have been in previous years. But if you go back and you look at August of last year and then August of the year prior to that, this number trending downward at this point in the year is not uncommon. If you're new to the channel, you've never heard me say this, but Nashville and the greater, just pretty much all of Middle Tennessee goes through waves in terms of temperature almost. When it's colder, it's going to be slower. When it's warmer, it's going to pick up speed. We're going to see a lot more activity. And that's what happened throughout the summer months here. We didn't see as much activity as we saw last year. I think that, it's an election year. That always plays a role. Because economy is a big part of people's decision to buy or sell. But rates have had a big role in it, obviously. There's a lot of different reasons why we're seeing a lot less activity. But all of this to say, the home prices haven't gone down as a result. And rates actually look like they're about to come down. So I don't know. I would look back to, when did we pick back up? Yeah, look at this Davidson County line in 2021 up here. This is kind of what I would expect to see through the winter this year. And we'll get into my reasons why. But, there was a slow taper off in 22, bit more drastic in 2023. This is, really when the rates didn't come down at the end of last year. We just saw it. I mean, it was almost like someone pumped the brakes or pulled an e-brake in the car. Just everybody stopped driving and trying to buy houses around this time last year. But I do think that that's going to change this year. We're going to get back over to market activity and new under contract. These are the new listings that have gone under contract. What those numbers look like in Davis County, there's just a lot more inventory. So we're going to see larger numbers there. This is one of the reasons why I do think, I mean, the numbers are so much higher for new under contract this year than in 2023 and even in 2022. August 2022 was just a little bit higher, but we're on par with some of these previous years. So that's a very good thing. People are definitely still buying a lot of houses. They're creeping up and these numbers are moving in the right direction. If we look at canceled listings though, this is where I start to go, I have some caveats to this statement. Canceled listings going up at such a dramatic degree here just tells me that I think people definitely, I see it happen all the time where listing agents and sellers, they always want to get the biggest bang for the amount of investment that they put into their home. And I always encourage sellers when I'm working with as the listing agent to really pay attention to what's happening on the market, who's out there looking for the house that you have to sell. And you never want to list a house for more than the market can bear. Outside of a market like in 2020, when the rates were at 2% in some instances and anybody and everybody under the sun could buy and there was always going to be competition and people had a lot of excess cash because of the pandemic and the money that we were getting hand over fist, we're not in that place anymore. And I think that it's taking people a lot longer time than I would have expected to really fully appreciate that as we come back into this economy and as things are changing, you cannot expect people to pay more for your house than it's worth. Suffice it to say. So, that being said, I say all this because I have a handful of real life scenarios, in fact one right now, that I'm trying to help this seller, but their listing agent had them listed for $25,000 to $30,000 more than any house in the HOA. That they all look exactly the same. It's one of these cookie cutter subdivisions, but it was listed for far more than it was really worth, based on the fact that the summer kind of heated up a little bit, but she only had so much time to sell. And at the end of the day, it's not going to sell when there's competing inventory, and there was competing inventory. So a handful of houses sold under her, and she ended up having to decrease her price to a much more realistic price. What that ends up doing to your home when you put it on the market for more than it's worth is that now you've got, MLS burn or whatever people call it, where it's been on the market for a little bit and now it looks like it can't sell for some reason. Some people can see through that and just say, okay, well, they listed it for too high and they had to come back down. But overall, the general impression that you leave with people is it puts a bad taste in their mouth for that listing, which is unfortunate, very unfortunate for the seller, because obviously it was not her intent. So I think, it's up to agents to have full responsibility with their clients, and for sellers to know that it is also your responsibility to ensure that when you go to list your house, you're not doing something that the market can't bear. Just it's not going to sell for that price. Now, canceled listings could also just be because people are throwing it out there. They need to sell. They want to sell, but they just want to see if they can do it within 30 days or 60 days. Maybe they can't wait for as long as the days on market is, so they have to cancel it. They go to lease it or something, some other temporary solution. Really, at the end of the day, this canceled listings number, it saddens me. It really feels like we should be doing a better job as agents to better inform and let sellers and buyers know really what's going on and what to expect. Hope that's fair. Days on market has steadily crept up. When the rates were low, everybody was selling super quick, super fast. It was great. And then as rates climbed, we saw homes sit just for a long time. Montgomery County, I had a couple of houses that sat last winter for a very long time, and I'm seeing it again where they're sitting for 30 to 60 days. 42, I guess, is the average. But we're actually sitting in a pretty good low number. These are still a little bit higher than some of the numbers we saw in 2019 and 2020, but really not that far off. So, I mean, again, this is a healthy real estate market. So I think that we're going to continue to see things move in a positive direction here. And I think that over the next few months, even though it will slow down, I don't think it's going to slow down quite as much as it has in the past. And the reason is that people still need to buy houses. And the reality is, if you are in a home for a couple of years, even if you have to buy something, what I try to tell my buyers is if the rate's too high, let's look at what you can buy with what you can afford now. A lot of people don't want to buy at their peak value. Then if they get approved for 400, they only want to buy at 350 or 300 anyway. And the reason is because, most of the reason is because of the rate and because of that monthly payment. So if you want to keep that monthly payment down, we can look at what numbers will affect you and help you get down, because sellers are a lot more used to, at this point, paying concessions for these home purchases. They can buy those rates down. You can buy points. I was able to get a VA loan into the 5s just recently, a contract we went under. So it's not unheard of, and it's not going to be too much to ask to try to get sellers to pay for some of those concessions. Now, these days you are going to have a little bit more cash to close, potentially, depending on if you can find the right deal, the right seller. But the reason for that is because sellers are not able to offer compensation to buyers agents as a result of the recent changes in this NAR lawsuit settlement. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to offer concessions. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to offer compensation on the back end. They just can't advertise that, if that makes sense. So talk to your agent about how that works. If you don't have an agent, give me a call. We can talk it through. But basically, concessions versus compensation, two different words. We all know what compensation is. That's when you get paid. Concessions are specifically the things that a seller, in this case, is willing to concede to, willing to give to the buyer, or offer to the buyer to make the sale happen. At the end of the day, the idea is to sell the home. So that's where the conversation gets started. What are your concessions? What are you offering at this price point? And they might not be offering anything, but can't hurt to ask. Average list to close is basically showing me very similar numbers. These going up in Williamson County. There's been a lot of new construction in Williamson County. It can take a lot longer once you're under contract to actually get to the closing table. So that's probably why we're seeing longer days list to close in Williamson County, but also list to close. This isn't contract to close. This is, if we do contract to close, that's the time when you go under contract to when you close. And again, yeah, Williamson County is really high, significantly higher than these other counties. Wilson County had a lot of developments through 21 and 22, I know. So these numbers are not too extreme. Looks like there was a big bump in Montgomery County, contract to close. When was this, over the summer? May? Yeah. That may have just been people waiting on rates to change, or trying to think of new construction out there that might have caused that. That's usually a new construction problem. Rutherford County is creeping back up, contract to close. So people may be waiting to see if these rates are coming down, maybe locking that contract up for just a little bit longer to see how they can get the most beneficial situation for the buyer. The last point to really look at, as we've talked about, listing your house for maybe too much, or as we're talking about listing the house, let's go ahead and look at what the average list price is active on market today. We definitely have, am I looking at 5 years? Yeah, so Rutherford County is kind of flatlined. You know, for the most part, you're seeing these lines stay pretty flat. They're peaking a little bit more in Williamson County. Davidson County has looked like it's gone down a little bit in terms of average list price. So let's see what's happening on the average close price. kind of wavering back and forth in Davidson County. Williamson County, frankly, there's a lot of new construction done in Williamson County. The price point is just much higher in Williamson County for the most part. There's also far less inventory to keep track of down there, so that higher number is consolidated more so. Montgomery County stayed pretty flat, but it has continued to rise. Wilson County, pretty much the same. And Rutherford County, MTSU, Murfreesboro, pretty much the same. Meaning that all of these places have gone up and not necessarily come back down to stay. So I think that people's values will continue to rise. I think that rates are actually going to continue to come down, because the longer they stay the same, investors and lenders can have an anticipation of what's going to happen as the market inventory stays consistent. Those investors will be able to bring those rates down. Because again, remember, retail rates are not tied to mortgage rates. It's two different markets, and it's dependent on what investors will pay for those loans to help fund these home purchases. So all that being said, I think that we are going to actually see, I'm hoping we'll see a busier winter than we've seen in previous years in terms of activity. And I'm hoping that we're going to, like if we look all the way back, is it August? Where was it? Yeah, like January of 2021, January of 2020, we saw some really big jumps. It does seem to always dip in December. That's a far less busy month. Just because it's holidays and everything else, I guess. But I'm really hoping that we're going to see a busier winter this year than we saw last year. And we didn't flatline quite as deep in December of 2023 as we did in 2022. Our year is looking a lot more like 2021, interesting enough. So I would hope that we will see a little bit of a slower trend downward, and maybe even in some of these places we're seeing a lot less of a decline into November before we hit that December lull. I think we're going to see a bigger jump in January next year as well. So, I don't know. I can't predict the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but I kind of like where the numbers are right now, and I think that we're learning a lot about what people are willing to do in a market like this. We have more than a half of a year behind us at this point to sort of take data from, and I feel pretty good about where things are and where things are headed in terms of this particular market. I'd love to know what's going on in your area, what you're seeing. Please leave a comment below. If this is helpful for you, let me know. Hit that like button, subscribe and share, and show some love. I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.